impressed?
I'm in better shape than I thought I was.
This is what happens when you cheat out on an e-tool.
I like to struggle. I like to struggle.
Oh, I got a crooked shovel. Look at that.
But it's moving along now.
Oh,
So,
oh no. Evan with High Pro Strategic here. Today we're going to talk about rifle plates, backpacks, and actually hiking up in the mountains. Do you know anybody else who does that on YouTube? No one. And we're joined here today with Alexander's Adventures, and he's going to join us with his plate carrier and his backpack. Once we get up to the trail and we set up camp, we'll talk about our setups.
America.
Okay, so as you can see, we just hiked up here into the Sawtooth. This is Alpine Lake back behind us. We're gonna briefly talk about our setups and what we got with our backpacks and how it felt as we got up here. So without further ado, I'm gonna go into it. So I've got my rifle here. It's just your standard DPMS 223556, and I've got a Surefire light on it. Got a Vortex red dot, and then I've got a Vortex magnifier, which is a 3 times. And then, of course, I've got a PVS 14, and that works pretty well with this. And I've got a Hollow Sun 509 on top of this Walther PPQ here, and that works pretty nice. And with my vest here, if you can kind of see, Gerber knife, and I've got my magazines for my pistol, and then I've got my magazines for my rifle. I've got level 4 plates, front and back. So the way that works with this backpack here, I just procured this recently. This is a 511 Tactical Rush. I think it's a 100-liter backpack.
That's 100
so
liters?
It's pretty
huge.
Pretty large. This worked actually fabulous. The only time it really kind of started to hurt was about 2 hours into the hike up here. It's about a 3-hour hike to get up to this mountain range up here. The shoulder straps started to hurt a little bit, and the hip pads, but that's to be expected with a long hike. And of course, it's got a large bag in here. You can fit pretty much everything in there. You got side bags, side pouches, and I've got my camelback ran through this, mainly because if you try to put a camelback on a plate carrier, as I noticed from experience, when you try to put your pack on, it smushes the shit out of that, and it'll pop it, and then it'll leak all over you. So that's not something you want to do. You want to put it in your pack. That's why we do stuff like this, because we like to learn from the experiences so we can talk to you guys about what you should and shouldn't do.
We go through the pain so that you can get the gain.
With the backpack and the plate carriers, it actually worked pretty decent. Backpack, the shoulder straps don't really dig into you much. With the strap that comes across, that was the only thing I had a problem with, because 511 Tactical, in their infinite wisdom here, they put little plastic D-clips in the molly gear, but the D-clips are like this, and there's a space. The plastic clip starts to heat up and it gets malleable, and then it comes off. So my shoulder straps are kind of slipping halfway up the hike here. We got all kinds of other stuff to be able to fix that. So that wasn't a super big deal. My main thing that I thought was gonna really suck was the pads, the shoulders, I mean, on the plate carriers. But I've got these pads, and these are from Shellback, and then this is a Shellback tactical plate carrier. This worked actually wonders. I mean, the only thing it really did was make it hard to breathe, but that's only about 2 hours into the hike. So what were your experiences?
The pain for me is, it's like you get into your pain tunnel when you're climbing or hiking. Eventually you're just you gotta focus and get past that. The main thing I try to do with my gear is make sure that it's not gonna give me any permanent injuries. With this setup, I went budget with my backpack. I happened to find this at a used store. It's an Arc'teryx, although I'm not sure of the specific model. Has a carbon fiber frame and a shock absorber on the hip pad. But this functioned just well enough that I was able to wear it with the Pig Brigantine that I carry around. I don't do quite the integrated setup that he does. I have a very minimal plate carrier. I only have 3 of my magazines here. They're all 20 rounders, and I just load that up for this guy because it's a different type of ammunition that I normally use.
What kind of rifle is that?
Oh boy.
Can you just go to the store and buy that?
No, we could spend all day here. For anyone that recognizes this silhouette, they'll know right away. This is a semi-clone of a Mark 12 Mod 0. It includes the OpSync brake and collar, now made by Allen Engineering, as well as a suppressor. If you want to build one of these, maybe I'll make a video about that. But it's definitely heavier than it could be for a rifle that does what it does. It was a little bit more of a hobby interest making it, but I still wanted to make sure that I could huff this thing around, and indeed I can. It's definitely a heavy rifle, certainly heavier than an M4. I haven't pulled it out of the pack yet, but I also have the PVS 30 clip-on night vision scope that goes on the front of this, as well as every other type of equipment you would expect to use in conjunction with night vision gear, like our PVS 14s on the helmet. So on the hike up, wearing a plate carrier with a backpack that's not objectively designed for it obviously comes with some challenges, but the primary one is, as time goes on, the padding that you have for any backpack, as any hiker knows, eventually loses its effectiveness. In the case of my gear, the thing I noticed, and I think you mentioned this while we were on our way up, about the 3rd hour for us on that climb, the shoulder straps on the plate carriers was really the thing that started to hurt the most, because the plate carrier obviously doesn't have a hip support. So all the weight of it is on your shoulders the entire time. Like this rifle, as an example, I had a few different methods I would carry it. Something I could do with it, putting it over my head and just setting it here, and it takes a little bit of the weight of the plate carrier up with my shoulders as they move up. And sometimes I could hug it up front, just cradle it and set it on the front of the plate carrier. But eventually those techniques just kind of lose their effectiveness. So that was really the main thing, is just as time goes on, it's going to hurt more and more, and you sort of have to just deal with it.
So overall, having a plate carrier with your backpack, it's going to be a pain in the ass, but in general, it's doable. And especially if you do some experimentation and you do it yourself, that's the main thing I would suggest. Is if you are serious about like shit hits the fan kind of thing, and you want to be able to hike out somewhere and you want to be able to take your load out and a plate carrier, you might as well test that stuff out first, because if you don't, you're going to regret that when you actually need to do it. Going up to a mountain like this and actually taking all your stuff with you, yeah, you get some weird looks and some liberals that don't like it, but for the most part, you know, it's legal, and we're in America, and being able to test your gear is probably the most important thing. Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to buy a gun and not shoot it. You're going to go shoot it to make sure it works. So the same thing goes for anything else that you have as gear that's going to be, you know, life-saving or something that you're going to rely on.
Yeah, what is it Grantham says? Get training, because if you don't have training, nothing else matters.
Now we're going to just briefly talk about what we brought and then what we forgot. That might help you guys when you're going on your camping trips. What's something actually not want to forget, that could be a game changer when you're camping, especially up in the mountains like this. I mean, a 2-3 hour hike, like if you forget something, that is going to be a huge pain in your ass for like however long you're camping for. And then you might even end up having to turn back around and walk back down the mountain, which is going to be another 3 hours just to get back to your car to try to go get something. It's always best to do like a pre-checklist right before you leave to go on a camping trip. For me, I brought, medical kit. I brought one of the foldable SAM splints just in case somebody falls and breaks a leg. Like, there's no medical assistance out here. It's all just us. I also brought an axe. I brought my shovel. I brought a cheap Chinese Walmart shovel, and that broke on us
Immediately.
That was kind of entertaining. Water filters. I thought he was going to bring 550 cord, so I didn't bring any 550
And
cord.
I thought he was going to bring 550 cords, so communication is key.
Ended up with no 550 cords. We needed to string something along like his pants that got wet.
Yep.
Well, we can't do that.
No clothesline, no way to hang anything.
So fortunately, that wasn't a game changer, but tell him what you forgot.
I forgot utensils, and thankfully he brought MREs mostly for the food that they're using. I've got freeze-dried food, MSR canisters, and burners to be eating, so no utensils means shaking a bag and trying to drink it, and that would have been awful. So yeah.
So now I'm going to briefly talk about our tents that we brought. The tent I got over here is the Ozark Trail 6-person tent.
That's a 6-person tent?
And yeah, and
wow.
I got it at Walmart because they had a whole bunch on a shelf, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. Maybe I'll pick that up and try that out. It was like $25. So far, I'm actually quite impressed with this tent. It is large. It was lighter weight than the other tent that I had, which was actually a Eureka tent. The only downside I'd say to this tent is it's not completely enclosed. Most of the top area is mesh, and then the rain fly is what covers the mesh. So if it gets cold, it's going to get cold in the tent. What kind of tent did you bring?
So this is a big Agnes, I don't know exactly which one, but it's a 3-person. I kind of try to look for bargains where I can, and tents are a big place to get savings. We're not cutting edge trying to climb Everest, and even if you did that, they're going to give you the tents that you need anyway. So this one I found at a local secondhand store. I did a little bit of research about it, and REI still sells this line, but this was like the last iteration of that. And it turned out I actually ended up buying a 3-man instead of what I thought was a 1.5-man, so that was a big plus, especially considering it was much lighter than I would have expected. But it's been rather impressive. The rainfly is full covering, so unlike the Ozark Trail, it goes all the way to the ground, as you can see, and you have the option of unzipping either side or fully closing it.
Nice.
But the inner tent itself is very well ventilated. It's actually the mesh that is on yours is significantly smaller than this one. But I would say this is definitely a summer tent. It's certainly not something that you really want to take to inclement weather unless you have to.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and if you made it this far in the video, you're the top 5% of all prepared people out there. And just remember that if you don't practice with your equipment, you're not going to make it very far, and you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of mastery that you've had. So if you've never practiced with your equipment, you're not going to be able to know what the shortcomings are and what the advantages and disadvantages of what you've got is